어떤 의미인지에 대해서 조금 좀 설명을 좀 드리고자 합니다. 그래서 저희는 스타트업 팀은 이제 아마존의 클라우드 서비스라는 AWS이고 그리고 스타트업 지원하는 스타트업 팀입니다. 그래서 저희는 굉장히 미션 드리븐 팀인데요. 저희 조직은 스타트업이 AWS 안에서 더 큰 비즈니스를 만들 수 있게 지원을 하는 팀이고요. 저희가 이제 지원드리는 방법은 크게는 기술적인 지원과 비즈니스적인 지원인데 저희가 지원드리는 다양한 프로그램들은 대부분은 스타트업의 성장 단계, 초기, 중기, 후기 그리고 이런 섹터별로 굉장히 거기에 맞는 니즈가 있습니다. 저희가 생각한 주요 섹터는 오늘 같은 클라이맥 테크 그리고 AI, 로보틱스 이런 다양한 섹터들이 존재하고 있습니다. 그래서 이런 것을 하는 거는 제가 속한 사업개발팀에서는 저희는 보통 기존에 투자를 했거나 아니면 스타트업을 처음 한 경험이 있는 사람들이 구성되어 있어서 투자자들과 그리고 스타트업 CX분들을 만들면서 니즈 그리고 어떤 필요가 성장하는 데 필요한지를 발굴하고 있습니다. 그래서 오늘 세션을 실은 마련하게 된 것도 이렇게 본사에서 초청을 해서 아마존의 투자에 대해서 말씀을 드리게 된 건 제가 이제 많은 스타트업 분들과 투자자들을 만날 수 있었는데 많이들 궁금해 하시더라고요. 보통 하신 질문이 아마존은 투자 안 하세요? 그리고 이제 미국 본사 연결하고 싶은데 어떻게 되나요? 좀 이런 질문들을 많이 주셔서 저희가 이거를 좀 한국에서도 좀 이런 비저빌리티를 높이기 위해서 기획을 하게 되었고 작년 같은 경우는 이제 원래 이제 투자를 대부분 북미 위주로 하고 있습니다. 처음으로 아시아를 위해서 한국, 일본, 인도, 그리고 호주, 뉴질랜드 스타트업들을 추천받아서 본사 연결하는 이벤트를 12월에 진행을 했었고요. 그리고 그때 너무 좋은 반응이 없어서 이제 한국만을 위해서 이번에 조금 더 한국 투자자분들 그리고 스타트업들을 만날 수 있는 기회를 마련하게 됐습니다. 네, 그래서 오늘 기술 스타트업 분들도 좀 많이 오셨기 때문에 저희가 좀 간단하게 지원드릴 수 있는 비즈니스 프로그램에 대해서 말씀드리겠습니다. 저희는 엑셀러레이터 프로그램도 갖고 있는데 크게 두 가지 좀 설명드릴 수 있을 것 같아요. 하나는 클린 에너지 엑셀러레이터라고 해서 저희가 이거는 이런 에너지 파트너 분들 그리고 또 이런 아마존의 구간 비즈니스, 에어스페이스나 이런 서스테너블 비즈니스와 연결해서도 지원을 드리고 있고 선택된 곳들은 UA 엑스포에서도 발표할 계획을 가진 글로벌 프로그램입니다. 그리고 또 하나는 저희 AWS 클라이맥 테크 엑셀러레이터라고 해서 이런 프로덕트 디벨롭먼트, GTM에 지원을 드리고 있고요. 여기는 좀 유럽에 관심이 있으신 유럽에 이미 프로젝트를 하고 계시는 분들은 지금 당장 신청하실 수도 있습니다. 네, 그러면 저는 앞으로도 이제 많은 분들과 교류하면서 또 많은 니즈를 발굴하고 같이 함께 성장을 하고 싶습니다. 이제는 두 분의 연사를 모시고 이제 파이어사이트 챗을 시작하려고 하는데요. 이제부터 좀 영어로 진행되는 점 양해 부탁드립니다. So thank you for the way, Vivi and Ginny. We are very excited to have you here and learn about your experience and learn about Amazon climate production. And many people actually don't know that we invest on climate tech startups. So we'd love to more about it. So I'm pleased to introduce two speakers from Seattle. Stage just came to speak. So Vivi is an investment partner at the Climate Pledge Fund, and Jeannie is the head of HR for Amazon Business and Corporate Development. Please welcome. Thank you. And could you please introduce yourself? Maybe starting with Vivi. Yeah.
Hi everyone, 안녕하세요. My name is Phoebe Wan, and I'm very, very happy to be here, and I'm very honored to be on the same stage as Ginny and John Wan. So I'm the investment partner at Amazon's Climate Pledge Fund, which is a $2 billion fund really focusing on sustainability. I will elaborate more later, but it's if you look at our track record, we have been around for 3 years, 24 startups, so we're actually pretty active in the space. A little bit about myself. I have been in the climate tech space in the past 15 to 20 years. Out of that, 10 years as an investor, invested over 30 companies, 3 unicorns, and hopefully can find the next unicorn in Korea. And then prior to that, I was an engineer, semiconductor engineer and a chemical engineer. So very, very happy to be here and looking forward to the fireside chat.
Hey, thanks for for having me here. I'm Ginny Misson. I lead HR for Corp Dev at Amazon. I've been at the company for almost 10 years now, which is kind of mind-blowing. Where does the time go, right? But beyond, before joining Amazon, I worked in management consulting for a brief time period, and really over the past decade, my remit at the company has spanned across different dimensions in HR. I started in supporting operations in the field, which was an eye-opening experience because it not only gave me a better understanding, but also an appreciation for what I consider to be the backbone of the Amazon business. And then I moved on to global talent management, looking at the talent philosophy and processes on a more global level. As you can see, that this was a complete opposite from my first rotation where I was like way in the weeds and at the front line where the actions happen. Now I was stepping way back, looking at the entire talent processes on a more enterprise level, and I really enjoyed that shift and focus, kind of learning about different aspects of HR. Then I wanted to learn how to lead HR in tech. So I found this opportunity to support this organization called STOT, Supply Chain Optimization Tech. This is essentially about 3,000 people machine learning organization that is basically the brain circuits behind our logistics network. What they do is really cool. It's a wonderful combination of tech, supply chain, and also science. Obviously, we've got a lot of big data. We've got ASIN level data on every single product that we sell on Amazon. We've got freight schedules, fulfillment center configurations, market competitive data, seasonality, pricing information. So we put all these different variables together to map out and create predictive modeling, basically, to optimize our supply chain apparatus. I mean, it was brilliant. I learned a lot. I loved it, and it was a great experience. I did it for a couple. I did it for 4 years actually. And then over the past couple of years, I've been senior HR leader supporting business and corporate development. Our team focuses on Amazon's M&A strategy, also commercial partnerships and warrants, and also specialized investment programs. I'll say this, it's been a completely different field, completely different ballgame, and I just love, all the strategic directions that we're picking and kind of looking at where Amazon's future goes, and it's just been a really fulfilling experience for me. I talk a lot, but yeah, that's my intro. Thanks.
Thank you, that's really great to know. So maybe we're gonna dive deep a little more. So Phoebe, you mentioned you've been over a decade of time and investing, and then we moved to the Amazon Climate Pledge Fund. There's news articles and stuff. So what makes you attract to Amazon Climate Pledge Fund? Why you decide
Yeah, so as Joan mentioned, I actually started as a financial VC, so I was with First Ventures, and then after that I moved over to start my own company, and then later with BP Ventures, and then later on as a startup in early stage fund had for Shell Ventures, and then Amazon's my latest pick. So a lot of people actually ask me why you shift from Shell Ventures, BP Ventures, and then to Amazon. I think the answer is really clear. I think that the climate solution and climate problem is really pressing as an existential problem for humankind. The larger the company, the more responsibility it is. And a little bit about the Climate Pledge Fund. It's a very, very young fund, only 3 years old. Think about that. And $2 billion AUM, and we're actively investing. So to me, really helping a team to grow from a day one mentality, which Jenny will mention a little bit later, is really useful and impactful in my opinion. So I decided to join Amazon to lead the investments in different sectors. And if you look at our Amazon's different business units, it's really mind-blowing. So it is not only the Amazon.com, which most people know as for, but also AWS, which you have both over here. Our cloud services data center, super top-notch services in that space. But few people know that we are also a space company. We have Project Kuiper, and we have thousands of satellites on the orbits. And then we also have acquired MGM, which is a studio, a large studio in the US. Last year, paid like $8.5 billion. So Amazon is really like an everything store and every business industry all-encompassing. So like being able to invest on behalf of Amazon and investing in the sustainability with a sustainability goal, the companies that I bring to our portfolio, like we will be able to deploy within the Amazon's worldwide operations, and that is a huge impact. So it's what I'm very excited in my role. I'm probably starting my honeymoon or another year period, but yeah, it's just fascinating to be here. And then if I can add on that a little bit more is I will talk about our like gender and diversity efforts. So I think it's similar to the sustainability effort, like we can look at a lot in the DEI space, and I'm also leading the Female Founder Initiative, which I'm very passionate about. So it is really a company that put money where our mouth is, and yeah, looking forward to sharing more like just in this hour.
Yeah, very excited to learn more about it. And they're a very diverse, business, and also a lot of projects in M&As and stuff. I'm sure Jeannie, you have trained and also supported executive leadership there in Amazon. So can you explain a little bit more about Amazon's uniqueness and how this happened, and like diverse business expansion, and also in quick speed in terms of that?
Yeah, I can talk a little more about Amazon's kind of leadership style. And Amazon has this peculiar culture that allows the business to oscillate, like effectively, between having this agility of a nimble startup that moves really fast, and also having the scale and operational excellence of an enterprise even. And I think Climate Pledge is actually a great example of that. Maybe here will give you a proper introduction of the plan, but I can touch a little bit more on the genesis of the investment fund to give you an idea of Amazon leadership at its best. So Amazon announced the Climate Pledge, and it's a goal to reach net zero carbon by the year of 2040, which was about 10 years ahead of the Paris Agreement's goal. Not that anybody was being competitive, just stating the fact. That was September 2019. And now when you look at Amazon's businesses, it really resembles the world at large. I mean, not only do we have cloud computing and e-commerce businesses, but we've also got our own brands, products, and devices like Echo and Kindle. We now produce movies and TV shows on Amazon Studio. We've got Amazon Game, Amazon Music. I mean, we even have fleets of airplanes and grocery stores. You name it, right? So Amazon announced the Climate Pledge, and a couple of leaders, actually very senior leaders at Amazon, Peter and Matt, whom I work very closely with and I greatly respect, they quickly realized Amazon cannot do this alone, because many of the technologies and products that will help us get to net zero had not yet been invented or developed or commercialized. So basically, we needed a lot of help from all these other companies, and therefore we needed to help them. As any true Amazonians would, these leaders quickly started putting down this idea on paper. How there needed to be additional backing by an investment arm, how we needed to help, not only ourselves, but all these other companies with the same goal and mission. And also how this isn't just a business imperative, it was just the right thing to do for the world. So they, wrote this document. By the way, we write way too many documents. We write a lot of thesis documents, like now I'm used to it, but it was kind of an adjustment in the beginning. But anyway, they wrote this document and they sent this memo to Jeff Bezos, who was our CEO at the time, asking for $1 billion to start this investment fund. It was a big ask, and the leaders were kind of anxious, waiting for, what is he going to say? The very next morning, Jeff replied, "Is $1 billion going to be enough? Let's go with $2 billion." Like I said, Amazon announced the Climate Pledge in September 2019. The leaders dove deep to understand exactly what was required to achieve that. Thinking outside the box, they created this plan, and they proposed this plan, and in the first half of 2020, we were able to launch our very first Climate Pledge Fund. I share this story because I think it illustrates just the incredible speed at which Amazon empowers our executives to operate despite the size and complexity of running a company the size of Amazon. And we do this by making sure that every leader and every employee is living by, our leadership principle, some of which leaders applied in this third example: bias for action, think big, success and scale bring broad responsibilities, and invent and simplify. Am I talking too much?
No. And I also would like to ask many documents, but probably they will PR and thank you, right?
Yes, I was just going to mention that. Thank you. We have a lot of mechanisms and tools that have been incredibly effective, helping our leaders to be more innovative and really thinking on behalf of our customers. One of it is writing what we call a PR FAQ. It's essentially a mock press release and FAQs in order for us to kind of think about, from a customer's standpoint, if you launch this product, how would that be received and what would be the bad press or good press. So it helps us really think backwards from our customers. Another great framework is this concept of one-way door decisions versus two-way door decisions. It's another really handy tool that helps us move fast while at the same time making sure that we're making some business decisions. I mean, obviously I could talk, for hours on leadership development, but I know that this is about Climate Pledge Fund, so I'm gonna have Phoebe jump on and take over.
Yeah, so we heard about the birth. So now I'll talk about what's the Climate Pledge Fund. Yeah. Phoebe, could you please explain about the fund and how we invest?
Absolutely. So I just want to kind of amplify what Jenny has mentioned is actually what we call our competitive edge or differentiated capital. Kind of when we bring to startups, we actually help them kind of learning how Amazon does things, like how we scale up from 0 to 1, from 1 to a million. Because most of the startups, they're actually doing from 0 to 1, right? So I think it's super helpful that we were able to bring this internal curriculum to our startups. Now, Climate Pledge Fund, so kind of continuing the story, after 2020, when we got the $2 billion from Jeff Bezos' approval, we actually put the money right into work. It's a very small team, less than 10 people, depending on how you count it. But for the $2 billion, we have invested in 24 companies so far, and that ranges through different sectors, which I'm going to dive a little bit deeper. But it's the normal sectors that you have to think about, right? Mobility, energy storage, utilization, and production. You have circularity, you have food and agriculture, basically everything that we have touched in the Amazon business worldwide. So we just for the startups in the audience, many of you probably think about how you are going to engage with Amazon and our Climate Pledge Fund. So basically, we're stage agnostic. We go from Series A all the way to pre-IPO, and when we invest, we have the mindset that we're going to support you in the long run. So basically, we're doing follow-ons, we're going to make good introductions. We have very seasoned investment professionals. Like myself, I have come in with an academic experience. We also have people who have 10 years, 20 years experience in the VC industry. So it's a very, very wide range of network that we can bring over to our startups. We also help them with our portfolio success team. So basically, for companies that are in our portfolio, you're actually going to get those what we call white glove services. And so we're helping you to find the right business units and the right key decision makers within those business units, so that you can have Amazon on your either customer pipeline or potential customers. And to be, I would strongly recommend you to connect with us on LinkedIn, but then also go to our fund website, which has all this information and our portfolio companies. And for so in addition to the kind of commercial agreements, guidance that we can bring to our companies in our portfolio, we also have executive mentorship, which Jenny is going to talk about later, and then also have Amazonians and residents, etc. So really help the startups to thrive once you're in our portfolio. So I'm going to dig a little bit deeper on the focus area because I think that's relevant to most of the audience over here. So for energy generation and production and utilization, so think about long duration storage, hydrogen, and we also do like batteries, recycling. So one of the probably more well-known company that we have invested is called Redwood Materials. It's like lithium battery recycling company, and co-founded by the ex-CTO of Tesla. We were able to get in the deal pretty early on and support them and help them to make like the productivity decisions along the business line. And then we also do like building technology and building efficiency. Basically, we think that the embodied carbon is very important sector that sometimes being overlooked. So look around at this conference room. You have like concrete wall, you have like a HVAC, ACs, etc. So these are like a high impact for CO2. So like for embodied carbon, you have like embodied carbon for concrete and cement. For the energy efficiency, you have like HVAC and AC. So we look very closely in those and have invested like carbon cure and bridgestone, and really to help the startups to provide their technology to not only Amazon but also to our signatories in the climate pledge, which are like Fortune 500 companies to like small companies. And the third part that we are looking at is the transportation and mobility. So having invested like a company in Zero Avia, Jenny mentioned that we own probably one of the largest like a fleet for like transportation for goods. So Zero Avia is a hydrogen for aviation. We're actually looking at SAF and hydrogen because we know that those are important for us to decarbonize like aviation fuels, and similar to like land transportation that we invested for mobility, etc. So, and then we also do manufacturing of materials, circular economy. Recently, we have invested in a company called Genesis, which is a fully bio-based, biodegradable company. And you know, like all the companies that have a lot of packaging and plastic we use, we're trying to minimize that and have zero waste. We also do like food and agriculture. So that is more on our Whole Foods. Like Whole Foods is a very well-known brand in US, and then Amazon acquired Whole Foods a few years ago. And then we also have Amazon Fresh. So these are like a business units that we want to support and then actively looking at food and agriculture technology. So think about pickle harvest, which is like really helping the efficiency for the indoor plant growing. In addition to this six, because we're in this like ever-changing world, we have added like data center technologies as our new focus area in nuclear. And data center is obviously, think about generative AI. You have heard a lot of different AI talk during this conference. It is going to be a very big revolutionary wave in human history, and we're trying to prepare the best for it. AWS has been a very instrumental unit within Amazon. So we're looking at new technologies that will help us to become the new leader or the next generation of leader for the cloud. So think about cooling technology, chip design, and e-waste, because in data center you have a lot of like waste that we want to get into zero waste. So if you have companies in those space, definitely come to see me. On the nuclear side, I know that especially in the US, it's a little bit controversial, but we're looking at like fission and self-fusion, so that it's more like near-term applications that we can do. So as we speak, there probably will be like new things coming up, and I'm super excited to serve the sustainability goal with investments in those innovation area.
Well, thank you. So if you're in that area, please reach out to us. And then I mentioned, like, the reason why I wanted to bring the client fund is actually they've been, not only like working knowledge, but they've been very helpful for the portfolio companies. They've been like the people who are fully dedicated. As Phoebe mentioned, there's a team supporting portfolio success, and that person has like great experience of like founding experience and investor experiences. So maybe you kind of explained already, but that how it's connected our business. Maybe just one or two cases that how it's immediately like worked, impacting and like used within our business.
I'll take Rivian as an example. So that's one of the like more prominent companies in our portfolio because they went IPO a few years ago. Rivian is an electric trucking company, and we actually come into the rounds very early on in their journey and help them to identify what are the use cases, what are the businesses that they want to target. So we actually pledged to purchase 100,000 Rivian trucks, and that is a very, if you think about your startup and then you have Amazon as a customer and then you suddenly got this PO IPO order of 100,000 vehicle purchase order. It is pretty awesome for startups. So I want to kind of dig a little bit more on our portfolio team, portfolio success team. It is a very lean team. We only have 2 people, but as mentioned, the whole fund is like 7 to 8 people. So it's basically like people that have been in Amazon for quite a long time and they know who to talk to help our startups. And we are also have our internal map of what are the business units that might be relevant to the portfolio companies and future portfolio companies that we have, as well as what are the key decision makers. We actually have a mechanism to talk to them like a monthly, quarterly, and have developed like what we call OP2, which is internal plan together, so that we are always on the pulse of the thinking and the business development within the business units. So I think that's a really successful examples, and we're looking for to replicate that in many of our other portfolio companies.
Thank you. And going a little bit more further on like how we are helping. So, Ginny, can you mention about the portfolio support? Like we've been focusing on underrepresented founder. You are that's a big initiative for us. And how we've been helping on the female leaderships or other diverse background people. How we've been supporting them.
Yeah, obviously sustainability efforts are a huge focus area for us, but we also care a lot about initiatives that promote more diversity, equity, and inclusion. Not only within Amazon, that's what I care about because it's my day job, but also addressing financial inequity, and lack of inclusion across different business sectors and industries and even societies, especially by supporting our underrepresented founders. Underrepresented founders have historically had less access to venture capital and more difficulties in securing funding, which is unfortunate because if you think about it, getting funding is not an easy thing to do to begin with. Even with your best ideas and best business plans, what we've seen here is that there's this added challenge based on different factors like gender, race, or sexual orientation, etc. So, an important statistic I wanted to mention here is, despite all these challenges, diverse and inclusive teams are about 75% more likely to push ideas into products and about 70% more likely to serve a new category. So, with this in mind, last year, October 2022, Amazon launched Amazon Catalytic Capital. It's a relatively new initiative to invest $150 million into venture capital funds that provide funding to entrepreneurs that come from underrepresented backgrounds. So basically, we are focusing on investing in funds that focus more on women, Black, Latinx, Indigenous, and also LGBTQ founders who are primarily in pre-seed or seed stages in VC funding. I don't have a full list of the funds that we're working with, but I do know a few names that we started with. Collide Capital, Elevate Future Funds, Techstars Rising Stars Fund, and also Share Ventures. And I know that these funds have already collectively invested in more than 50 companies that have been founded by underrepresented entrepreneurs, which I think is amazing. The idea behind Catalytic Capital is if Amazon invests in all these funds, and if these funds invest in all these companies, it will ignite, spark a little more innovation, different types of segmentation to support more diverse customers and improve customer experiences. And we really wanted it to be like a catalyst that brings about different types of innovation that can, support communities, even, create more generational wealth that has not, historically been readily accessible in the past for certain demographics. So that's the idea behind the name Catalytic Capital. Now, there are great minds behind, this capital. I wasn't the brain power behind this initiative. It was Zain Ghulamali, Ash Desai, Jess Shea. These are some of the fearless leaders at Amazon who were able to really make this happen. I do have this vivid memory though. I think it was like sometime in 2021, because in the middle of the pandemic, a dozen of us in Corpdev were talking about how to improve diversity and inclusion at Amazon, but not only within the company, but also our product and partnership pillars that go beyond Amazon into the world outside the company. And I think this was one of the moments where we realized that in our organization was uniquely positioned to drive some meaningful changes just by applying what we do on a day-to-day basis into the efforts of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And this ambitious conversation happened in 2021, and again, we charged ahead, and we were able to transform this great idea into an actionable and impactful initiative. So basically, turning ideas into reality, that's what we do. And it's a wonderful thing to witness and be part of. I do have a couple more things to mention. Beyond capital support, we also offer the opportunity for entrepreneurs from underrepresented backgrounds to receive one-on-one mentorship from Amazon executives. So basically, we pair select underrepresented founders with Amazon executives in a one-on-one mentorship relationship for a set time period, I want to say 6 months, so that they can focus on, the underrepresented founders' executive priorities and also mentorship needs, whatever they want, so that they can, better navigate different challenges ahead, which I think is really cool. And beyond mentorship, we also have a lot of initiatives that provide more connectivity into, the internal Amazon groups. For example, we're actually working closely with AWS's underrepresented founders BD and startups strategy group to try to increase underrepresented founders coverage areas and also geographic areas, and offer our portfolio companies with more resources like AWS activation packages and credits and things like that. The idea is to help them bootstrap so that they can have more access to resources and advice and tools like that in order to expand their business more easily. So I think that's all I got for Catalytic Capital, but I know Phoebe, you are working on Female Founders Fund. Do you want to speak a little bit about that?
Great. This is a great segue to talk about the Female Founder Initiative. In COP27 November last year, we have announced that we're going to put $50 million into female founders, and then a couple of more $1 million working with the USAID for grants and project money. So this is like a starting point for us to get into, or dipping our toes into, the gender equity from the climate pledge fund, and I'm very honored to be leading that effort. So basically, we are looking at investing more in female founders, especially based on our research. What we found female founders lack is actually at the seeding area. So during the early stage, most of the female founders compared to the male counterpart have the lack of resources. So that could be like a lack of role models, a lack of capital actually going from the family and friends side. So what we are trying to do is to help bridge that gap and encourage more female founders coming into the stage, and hopefully like next year in the Innovation Prize we will see more than one female founders receiving the award. I want to highlight our first investment, which is in Genesis. The lady Luna you saw in the photo, like she's actually a serial entrepreneur. So there are a lot of female founders around. I don't think it's a pipeline issue, because just in the US, I probably need to get more stats in Korea, but I'll share the stats in the US. In the US last year, we have like 44% STEM, which is like engineering and science graduate students. We have 44% of them are female. So most of the deep tech companies and climate tech companies is founded by technical founders. And why we only see like 2% of the total venture capital money in climate tech and in venture capital in general going to female founders. So there's some like disconnect over there. We're trying to by leveraging our female founder initiative and try to bridge that gap. And for me, many people probably don't know, because most people know me as a VC, but I actually started my own company a few years ago, and did that for 2 years, and had a hard time raising money. I did raise like early stage fund, but kind of the tremendous barrier that I have encountered is like just unimaginable. So like with my effort and with Jenny and many others, and Joanne and Will Lee, etc., and our Amazon and AWS team, we're trying to bridge that gap, and I just want to share, and hopefully there will be more female founders coming over to me, and we can discuss about how we can help them.
It's great to know I'm a female, so interested though. So we've been learning more about the Amazon and the Climate Pledge Fund. So I kind of want to hear, since we have people in person and visiting Korea, Phoebe, you've been in the past couple of days, you've met kind of a lot of like Korean investors and startups, and what's your impressions and thoughts?
My first day, I would say, although I grew up in Asia, I was born in China, I grew up in Singapore, but it's my first time in Korea, and I'm growing up watching Korea dramas, so like coming to Korea is like a dream come true. So my first few days, although it's a very short trip, but I was able to meet I think close to 100 startups now, like including people that I met over here. I was very, very impressed on the quality of the startups, the number of founders, and then also the enthusiasm, not only from the founder side, but also from the investor and the government side. So to put that into kind of comparison, so what I think is a good ecosystem is that you have good founders, and for you to have good founders, you actually should have good universities. I have visited a few universities and very impressed on their technology and the curriculum that they're providing. And then you also need to have like a good investors and co-investor base, right? You need to have the capital coming in. So I think yesterday and the day before, we actually met with some top executives with like Samsung Ventures, GS, LG, and we have met with Hotel Ventures, etc. So it's like a ton of local CVCs and VCs, really focusing on investing in domestic market. And then also like they're supporting government. So I think with all these different elements, it's actually a really, really promising field for startups and for startups to grow. Now specifically on Korea, because obviously Silicon Valley, where I work in, and then also Seattle, broader West Coast in the US, is where you see a lot of startups, you see a lot of dreams come true, you see a lot of investments just making the news, a lot of unicorns that performance. But then in South Korea, I think you have a unique opportunity now, given the rise of generative AI, because you have Samsung, you have SK Hynix. These are two of the 4 or 5 top semiconductor companies. You do have the infrastructure and the AI chip business locally. So that's also something that I'm gonna actively scouting and see if there's interesting technology around. So overall, I think it's really promising. I'm very impressed, and my goal is to find some companies to invest, and this is happen to me.
Yeah, thank you. And Jeannie, also your first time visiting NextRise, so your impression, and also you work with a lot of executives, right? So here you're going to see a lot of founders and leadership. Just give impression and some kind of advice. That would be also great.
Yeah, I'll do impression first. I mean, I don't have a lot more to add other than what Phoebe just shared, but I love it here. The energy here is incredible. I got to spend some time talking with startup CEOs and some of the investors, and it's incredible. Obviously, sustainability area is we're very excited about, but there seems to be just so many different sectors where a lot of people are working hard to make the world a better place, basically. And it might be an overshare, but I'm not much of an optimist. But being here, honestly, it almost makes me feel like we may have a pretty great future ahead. So I really appreciate NextRise inviting us to be part of this experience, and it's just been such an honor to be here. So thank you. Well, that's my impression. Advice. This is awkward because there are so many brilliant minds here, and I'm probably preaching to the choir. But let me try. I'll say think big and think long term. And I'll come back to the climate pledge, because as a company, we try to look around the corners to see where our business needs are going to be, and also where other companies' business needs are going to be. And when you have a timeline like 2040 with the climate pledge, you can't really afford to look just 1 or 2 years out. You have to look long term, more like 10, 20 years. here, thinking about the world 10 years ago. I mean, ChatGPT, QR code, Uber, these were like largely inconceivable ideas which brought forward so many different, all kinds of innovations along with that. Now, let's go back a little further, 20, 30 years. Amazon was barely an online bookstore. Social media looked very different from today. I don't even think that we called anything social media back then. Cell phone was really just that, cellular phone that makes calls and texts. And we didn't used to depend our entire lives on this little device, back in the days. Now let's go the other direction. Looking ahead, 20, 30 years, how do you build innovations and opportunities for the world that doesn't even exist yet, that we know is going to be completely different from today? How do you bring that disruption that's going to be, that's going to end up shaping the future that we don't yet know? So my perspective is that I think the sky is the limit. I think that a lot of people in this room have the capacity and ability to be part of that future. So I guess please be disruptive, think big, and very long term. So that's all of it.
Thank you. And also, maybe you work with a lot of quality investors, also work with a lot of founders. Any thoughts or advice can be shared to our Korean founders and investors?
So I think that in addition to the think big and really kind of think long term and then be disruptive, I think the other point that I want to emphasize as a kind of fellow founder is be very persistent, because you're going to get a lot of no's from whether it's VCs or maybe it's even your parents, right? You're trying to quit your conglomerate job and you're trying to start a company, and your parents might have wrong at the idea. So I think it's important to know that once you have a great idea, you test around, you have the conviction that this is going to be making a big impact in the world, and you have the solid business model. So make sure that you go talk to people and really push forward with your idea. And I think you're going to get maybe 1,000 no's, but all you need to have is one yes, and you're able to move forward. So I think the persistency and the tenacity is important. And I think if you look at all the companies, the successful ones, they started sometimes with an idea that probably is very different from what they mature into. So also have that flexible mentality to move forward. So work hard and push forward, and don't have thick skin, and don't get bogged down and forget a lot of things.
Well, thank you very much. It was great, and I also learned a lot from the conversation. Very interesting. We want to open up questions, but we have a limited time, and it's probably better to ask more open questions. So we'll end the session here. We'll stick around here so we can ask questions here. 오늘 세션에 참석해주셔서 너무 감사합니다. 그리고 저희 앞으로도 오신 분들과 함께 좀 많은 협업 기대하겠습니다. 네, 감사합니다. 저희 이쪽에서 좀 더 얘기 나눌 예정입니다. 감사합니다.